Saurabh, you're also correct. Okay, Ansible is a configuration tool and Terraform is an orchestration tool. That's a good answer. Okay, Saurabh. Yeah. So before understanding Ansible and the Terraform, actually, okay, we need to understand what we need to actually deploy our application. Okay, so I'm taking a very simple example over here. Okay, so basically, let's say you need to deploy a server, okay, or you need to deploy a web server, okay, that will host your website. Okay, that is a very simple example. Okay, that you just need to deploy a web server like Apache, Tomcat, or any of the web server. Okay, and that particular web server will be responsible to host your website actually. Okay, so you want to do that. Okay, now for doing that, if I talk about before automation, okay, then there are multiple steps you need to perform. Number one, that is setup servers. Okay, obvious. If you want to deploy some application or if you want to install a Apache web server, you always need a server. Okay, you always need a machine. You always need a dedicated machine or a dedicated hardware. Okay, it depends that where you are creating that particular hardware. You can create it on your on premises, you can create it on the cloud, you can use virtualization, you can make your application containerized. There are multiple methods to provision, but for all that things, what you need to set up the servers. Okay, as if you want to install a VLC media player, then also you need an operating system, and to install the operating system you need a dedicated hardware. Okay, so first we need to set up the servers. Number two, after setting up the servers, what we need to do, we need to configure them or configure softwares. Okay, we need to install the operating system. After installing operating system, we need to check for the dependencies and other things. Okay, and after that we need to deploy the application. Okay, or we need to configure the softwares. After that, number three, how the client is going to reach to your server, okay, to connect with your website or to fetch the data of your website, okay, from your server. That is depends on the networking. Okay, so you always need to configure the networking also. Okay, you will always provide a public IP to that particular server. After that, you will make that particular public IP enter into the A record of the DNS. Okay, and from that DNS, the request will come on your server. That is a different step, but we need to configure the networking also. Number four, let's say you want to install the DB. Number five, let's say you want to create some route tables. Number six, let's say you want to install some more softwares. Okay, so before automation, these all the tasks were manual. Okay, you always need to do these all the tasks by yourself. Okay, you will go to the market or you will purchase a dedicated server or you will create a server on the cloud as EC2 instance. After creating the EC2 instance, you will configure the networking as you will configure the security groups. After that, you will configure the software, install DB, route table, VPC, and all the things. You have to configure it manually. Okay, so there are two things. Number one, you need to provision your environment or you need to provision your infra. After that, you need to configure it. And after configuring, obviously you need to do the maintenance also. Okay, that is the also important thing. So these all the things are done manually before we jumped into the automation part. Okay, now after setup, in the maintenance part, what you need to do, let's say you need to update some version of some package. That is also a manual thing. Okay, let's say you want to deploy some new release. That is also a manual thing. Let's say you need to take the backup of some DB. That is also a manual thing. Okay, let's say you want to recover some app. That is also a manual thing. Let's say you want to recover some servers. Okay, or you want to add some servers. Okay, that is also a manual thing. So first you need to provision your infra. After that, you need to configure it. After that, in the maintenance part, you always need to look into the servers to update the versions, deploy new releases, DB backups, recover apps, add servers, or managing different configurations on your existing application. So these all the tasks were done manually before automation. Now after automation, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. There's a fluctuation in my internet connection. That's why I need to check again and again that I'm audible or not. Now, after automation, we have multiple tools, okay, or we have a concept as IAC, that is infrastructure as a code. Now, what does it mean actually? Infrastructure as a code means automate all the tasks which you were doing manually, okay? Automate all those manual tasks, okay, end to end. That is the basic understanding of infrastructure as a code. And there are multiple tools available in the market like Ansible, Terraform, Puppet, Chef, Salt Stack, and the last one is Cloud Formation. Okay, so there are 6 famous tools which are available in the market that are Ansible, Terraform, Puppet, Chef, Salt Stack, and Cloud Formation. Okay, now, but there is a single thing: no tool can do everything. Okay, there is not a single tool of infrastructure as a code which can provision your environment completely from end to end. Okay, there is no tool. They work together. Okay, and how they work together, that we need to understand. And after understanding that, we will be understanding that what is the major difference between Ansible and the Terraform. Okay, because both are basically the same, but what is the key difference between both of them, that we actually need to understand. Okay, so now there are majorly, I'm dividing these all the tasks in 3 categories. Okay, number 1, that is infra provisioning. Means you need to set up the servers. In the infra provisioning also, what you need to do, you need to spin up the servers. Okay, means at the moment you need to upgrade the servers. Okay, or you need to like add some more servers, you need to delete the servers. Okay, spinning up the new servers, that is the part of the infrastructure provisioning. Number 2, that is you need to do the network configuration, that is same as before. Number 3, that is you need to, let's say on the AWS, you need to create a load balancer. Number 4, you need to configure something on infra level. Okay, let's say you need to create some VLAN over the switches. Okay, there are a lot of things. Okay, so for that, like let's say you need to connect your different dedicated servers by using switches, and for the switches you need to create the VLANs, you need to configure some network devices. So these all are the part of the infrastructure provisioning. Okay, after that, number 2, that is configuration of provision servers. Okay, once you have configured the servers, once you have built up the servers on Amazon, let's say you have created 10 instances on AWS. Okay, you have created load balancers on AWS, you have completely provisioned your infrastructure on AWS. After that, what you need to do, you need to configure them. Okay, and in the configuration, what we have basically, we have, let's say, install some applications. Okay, number 2, managing them. Okay, and number 3, prepare the infra servers to deploy the app. Let's say you want to deploy some MySQL database, and for that you need to configure the repository. So that is the part of the third number. Prepare the infra servers to deploy the application. Okay, so that is the part of the configuration. Okay, so first we have configured the, or we have provisioned the environment. After that, we have done the configuration. And number 3, that is the deployment of the application. Okay, that is the last part, that you have deployed your web server and you have make your web server available at the public IP. You have configured the load balancer, you have configured the network by which the traffic will come to your particular server. Okay, so that is the part of this third stage. So there are 3 stages. Number 1, infra provisioning. Number 2, configuration of provision server. Number 3, deployment of application. Okay, now I'm audible?
Yes.
Okay. So now what is the difference between Ansible and Terraform? Before that, we are going to discuss about just Ansible. Okay, so I'm taking an example over here. Let's say I have created a EC2 instance, okay, on AWS. That's it. There is a very simple command for that. You need to log in onto the portal. After that, you need to go onto the EC2 service and you need to create the instance. And whatever port you need to allow, you can allow them in the security group. So you have configured a EC2 instance. Let's say you have configured t2.micro. Okay. After that, what do you need to do? Obvious, operating system will be already installed. What you need to do? You need to install Apache. Let's say you have installed HTTPD. After that, what you need to do? You need to add some ports in firewall. After that, what you need to do? Obvious, you need to configure it, or you need to configure some httpd.conf file. You need to make change into that. After that, you need to put your data inside some document root. Okay. Or I can write here, put data in document root. Okay. So number 1, you need to create a EC2 instance. After that, you need to install the HTTPD. After that, you need to add the ports. After that, you need to configure the httpd.conf. After that, you need to put the data inside the document root. And at the last, you need to start the service. That's it. Now, let's say you have deployed your flipkart.com over here. You have started a new business. Okay. So you have deployed a flipkart.com over this particular server. Okay. For this flipkart.com, you have already created a load balancer over here. Okay. This is my LB load balancer. This load balancer is having the IPS 2.2.2.2. This Flipkart or this particular server is having the IPS 1.1.1.1. Okay. In the load balancer, I have entered this particular IP. Okay. So that the request or the request can go to this particular server by the load balancer, And after that, let's say over here you have the client. This is my client. Okay. And here is your DNS server. In the DNS server, you have written some configuration as www.flipkart.com is having the A record as 2.2.2.2. Okay, so whenever client browser is connecting to the DNS server is going to tell the IP of this flipkart.com, and the request of the client is going to come on the load balancer. And in the load balancer, let's say you have configured a round robin method, and the request is going to go on the this particular flipkart.com or onto the server. Okay, now till here your business is working fine. Okay, let's say you only have 1000 requests per second. Okay, or you only have 1000 requests per day. Okay, in 24 hours you only have 1000 requests or 1000 hits on your website. Now to handle those traffic, obvious this server will be responsible. And let's say t2.micro is having 1 GB RAM. Okay, let's say it is having 50 GB of hard drive. Okay, network bandwidth is all around 10 GB per second or something. Okay, and let's say this is having the graphic card as 4 GB GPU. Now let's say day by day the requests are coming more, then what you will do? You can auto scale your instances. That is a very good feature of Amazon. Okay, that on the upcoming request, you can configure your servers automatically. Okay, so day by day the requests are coming more. Let's say on after 1 month you have 10,000 requests per day. So is this server cannot handle these particular requests. Why? Because this is not having the resources. This is not having much resources. So this particular server would not be able to handle these requests because there are 10,000 requests per day on your website and you only have 1 GB of RAM over here. Obvious your applications which is running on this server. Okay, it obvious needs some memory. Okay, so whenever the high traffic will come, it can go down. Okay, or it will not reply. It can happen. So let's say day by day your website is becoming more and more famous. So for handle those traffic, what you need to do? You need to continue provision the servers. Okay, let me short the diagram. So what you need to do, let's say 10,000 requests is coming per day. So now after this server, you need to configure another server. After that, you again need to configure another server. Just a second. So after configuring the second server, the requests are coming, let's say 10 lakhs per day. Okay, your website is becoming more popular and 10 lakhs requests per day is coming on your website. Okay, 10 lakh hits are coming on your website. So you need to configure the servers. Now this is number one, this is number two, this is number three. You have made all the entries of the IPs of these server into the load balancer, and load balancer is distributing your request on different servers. That is the primary work of the load balancer. Okay, it distributes the traffic. Clear? Now, in this scenario, what you always need to do, number one, create EC2 instance by yourself. Okay, that is infra related. Number two, install Apache manually. Obvious. Number three, add port manually. Number four, copy the data to document root manually. And number fifth, configure conf file manually. Or number six, start the service manually. Okay. Now let's say on this particular load balancer, 10 crore requests are coming, or let's say your flipkart.com is going to have the big billion sale in 2 days. Now to handle, as you know, you have the experience from the previous year that on every big billion sale, you have almost 100 crore requests per day. So let's say on the big billion sale, you always have the estimation of 100 crores requests per day. How will you handle this load? What you need to do? You need to configure, let's say 5,000 servers, okay? To handle big billion sale traffic, I need 5,000 servers, okay? Now, you cannot create 5,000 servers by yourself, okay? You cannot install Apache on them. It will be taking a long time. You will need 6 months, or you will need at least 3 months to configure them. You cannot add ports manually in all the 5,000 servers. You cannot copy the data. You cannot configure the configuration file. You cannot start the service manually. That would be really messy. Okay, when you are or when you want to set up this particular high-end environment. Okay. And obvious, after the finishing of big billion sale, I need to remove all the servers. I need to delete them. So you cannot go on AWS and you cannot click on each and every server and you cannot go on delete. You cannot do that manually actually. For that, you need a very high human resource. And for every human resource, you need to pay. So there will be a very high human resource cost. Okay. So I don't want these type of solutions. So for that, what I have, create EC2 instance. That is the part of infra provisioning. Okay, spelling can be mistaken. I'm writing fast. And that will be done by Terraform. So Terraform generally run scripts, okay, and Terraform basically have a lot of plugins which can communicate with your different cloud providers like AWS, Azure, okay, DigitalOcean, okay, GCP. There are a lot of, okay. So the Terraform can communicate to these different cloud providers and provision your environment automatically. That is the first advantages of Terraform. There are a lot of we are going to discuss. Number two, after infra provisioning, after installing an operating system, okay, the second step is obvious, you need to manage it. So for managing the infra, let's say you want to install something on all the servers which are provisioned by the Terraform. That can also be done by the Terraform. Number three, after managing infra, obvious, let's say you want to set up some initial applications. Let's say you want to set up 5,000 EC2 instances, and on all the 5,000 EC2 instance, you want to run an initial script which can make some repositories configured into your instance automatically. Okay, that repository you need on all the servers. So for that also, that is the initial application setup. That can be also done by the Terraform. Okay, but after these all the things, obvious, let's say on your server the application is running. Okay, on this server your application is running. Let's say on some particular day this service goes down. What will you do? How you will know about it? How you will check it that the service is up or not? And on all the 5,000 EC2 instances, on which servers the service is down, on which servers the service is up. Okay, on which servers I have installed the database, on which server the database is not running or running. There are a lot of things. Okay, so what you need to do, you need to manage the applications, and that is not done by the Terraform. That is done by the Ansible. Okay, so now let me create a very beautiful diagram over here. Infra setup, that is creating EC2 instances, creating droplets on DigitalOcean. Okay, there are a lot of things, okay, which are included in the infra setup. Okay, you want to configure some switches, configure some VLAN over the switches. There are a lot of things. Okay, after infra setup, you need to manage it. And after managing, obvious, you have the initial application setup. Okay, and after the application setup, you need to manage the application. Okay, in the manage applications, let's say you want to take some backup of some server, you need to copy that particular backup on some particular remote server. Okay, so time to time you want to check your database is running or not. Time to time you want to check that this particular port is working or not, the application is listening on the port or not. You want to verify those things. Or let's say you want to update the database. Okay, so for that also, let's say you want to update some application over the server, that is also the part of manage applications. So from here to here, the work can be done by Terraform. Terraform can provision your environment. Listen carefully. Terraform can provision your environment. It means it can create a EC2 instance by communicating to the AWS API, okay, by using some of its plugin, which are developed by some HashiCorp and some different communities, okay. So it can provision your infrastructure. It can manage them. Okay, let's say you want to make the 80 port available on your security group. You want to create some VPC. You want to create some load balancer. You want to make your environment ready. You need to configure, let's say, 15 services on the Amazon to make your environment ready. So this is a complete infra setup and the manage infra part. That is done by the Terraform. After that, you can set up the initial application setup. That is, let's say you want to run some bootstrap script over there. Okay. Or let's say you want to configure repo on all the servers. Okay. Or let's say you want to do some same. Do same on all. So that is the initial application setup. Okay. After that, when you have deployed your application, let's say you have deployed Apache over here in the initial application setup, you have deployed Apache. But after that, let's say you want to update Apache. You want to, let's say, roll back Apache version. You want to change something into the configuration. Okay. So now, just a second. Okay. So that is the part of the manage applications. Okay. And now here comes the difference between both. Ansible can help you to manage the infra, to do the initial application setup, to manage the applications, but it cannot make your infra ready. Okay, that is only done by the Terraform. So now over the Ansible, you have different tools. Ansible, Puppet, you have the Chef also, you have the Salt Stack also. On the side of Terraform, you have the Cloud Formation also. Okay, so this is the major difference between both the tools. Okay, so when you want to do or when you want to configure your infra, okay, with one more example, we can understand this. Let's say I'm working in a product or I'm working on a project, and in that project, I need to configure 15 services on my AWS. Okay. So at the initial time, I'll do research, and after that, I'll configure all the 15 services. I'll connect them, I'll do networking, all the setup I will be doing manually. Okay. Now, after that, let's say after 5 years, I left the job and some another person is coming on my profile. How he will know that what I have configured? What port I have allowed in the security group, how the load balancer is communicating to this particular instance, okay, how I have configured the networking between all the services, how the data or traffic is flowing between all of them. So that person is not able to know that because the infrastructure is configured by me. Okay, but if I convert this particular infra setup in code, okay, that is infrastructure as a code. Okay, so obvious that person can also understand the things because these are the general things. If I know Terraform, he knows Terraform, both are able to understand each other's code because all the codes are written in the same basis. Okay, so they are general level codes. Okay, the plugins are same, the modules are same. Okay, this is not like some different scripts for different persons minds. Okay, these all are the general perspectives. Okay, so that person will also be able to understand what I have configured, how I have configured. If there is some mistake in the infra, he can again run that particular script. There is a file in the terraform as .tf. You can run that. Okay, so Terraform basically gives you a facility of infrastructure as a code. After provisioning your infra, you can manage the infra by Terraform. You can set up your initial applications by Terraform, but you cannot manage them. Okay, you cannot manage applications. You can manage infra. You cannot manage applications. So to manage the applications, to update the Apache, to roll back the things, to change into the configuration, okay, for that, you can use the Ansible. So I have told you earlier that No tool can do everything. Okay. There is not a single tool in all of these which can do everything from top to bottom. Okay. You have to use them differently. So Terraform, just a second. Is infra provisioning tool, or you can say it is orchestration tool. Ansible is managing applications, or it is a configuration management tool. Okay. Now, let me tell you one more thing over here. It is not like that Ansible cannot create EC2 instance. With the help of Ansible also, you can create EC2 instance. But for the orchestration, Terraform is rich. And for configuration management, the Ansible is rich. Okay. Guys, have you got the difference between both of the tools? Is there any question till here? Is there any question of anyone?
No, clear.
It is clear that what is the major difference between the Terraform and the Ansible? Clear? Now, so I hope now you are clear with the Terraform. Now, after Terraform, we can also see the differences between Ansible, Puppet, Chef, and Salt Stack. Okay. So before that, let me make you understand the architecture of Ansible, that how Ansible works actually. Okay. Let's say you have these servers. Okay. These are the 4 servers. Okay. This particular server is having Linux installed. This particular server is having Unix installed. This particular server is having Windows installed. And this particular thing is the network device. Okay. Cisco, Juniper, there can be a lot of different network devices. Okay. Now, these all the things are called managed nodes. Okay. Or managed host. You want to manage them. These all are provisioned by the Terraform. Linux plus Unix plus Windows network devices, these all are the provisioned by the Terraform. But after installing the operating system, after configuring the infra, what do you need to do? You need to manage the application. Let's say here also on all the servers you have configured Apache on 3 of the servers. And Ansible, what you have a control node over here. And that particular control node connects to this particular managed host. Okay. Now, how they connect? This first thing, this control node can only be on Linux and Unix. Means Windows is no more available here. Okay. You cannot install any of these tools on Windows. Okay. That is completely restricted because these tools are not available for Windows actually. Okay. So you cannot install Ansible, Puppet, Chef, Salt Stack on Windows. You can manage Windows, okay, but you cannot install on. So on the control node, okay, this must be on Linux and Unix. Now, the control node always connects to this particular managed node by using some protocol, by using SSH on port number 22. On Unix also you are using SSH on port number 22. On Windows you are using HTTP 5985, HTTP 5986. Okay. On the network devices you can communicate CLI over SSH or CLI over XML. There are a lot of things by which you can communicate with the network devices. It depends on the network device actually. Okay. Now, these all the tools are having the same infrastructure, same architecture. In all the tools, you will be having a control node, you will be having the manage node. From this control node, you are pushing some modules over these manage nodes, which will do your configuration. Okay. Now, what are the differences? why you need to select the Ansible, okay, that we need to understand. Now, first we can go for Puppet. So Puppet is a tool where you need to configure master. Number two, you need to configure the agent, okay. Now, what is the agent actually? So let me tell you. Let me ask you a question, okay. Chetan, are you there? Okay, now, so tell me, let's say I'm giving you a Java program, okay, and I'm telling you that you need to run this particular program on your server or on your Windows system. What is the first thing you will do? Will you install Java first? Yes or no? Will you install the Java interpreter? Yes or no?
Yes, we'll install Java first.
Obvious. Because after installing Java, you would be able to run the code of Java because you need the interpreter. Okay. So in the Puppet also, Puppet works on Puppet DSL. That is a Puppet domain specified language. Okay. So to understand Puppet, first you need to understand the Puppet domain specified language. Now, on the Linux server, on the Unix server, on the Windows system, you never have the interpreter of Puppet DSL. You always have to install it. So let's say I'm configuring 5,000 servers. So on all the 5,000 servers, what I need to do? I need to install the Puppet DSL agent, Puppet DSL interpreter. So in the chef also, you need to configure the chef master.
Yes.
Now chef works on Ruby, or you can say Erlang. So obvious by default your Linux, Unix and Windows is not having the interpreter of Ruby and Erlang, okay? So obvious for running the code which is written in the Ruby, or for pushing the code from the control node which is written in the Ruby or Erlang language, what you need to do? You need to install the interpreter. So if you are configuring 5,000 servers, you need to install the interpreter of Ruby and Erlang. In the Salt stack or in the Ansible, Ansible also works on the same scenario, but there is a difference. Ansible is agentless. Now, why it is agentless? There is a very big reason behind this. Okay, why Ansible is agentless? Ansible modules are basically created in Python or basically written in Python. Okay, it is not specific. You can write the Ansible modules in different languages also. Okay, but by default, all the modules are configured in Python. Now, your Linux is also having the Python as pre-installed. Your Unix is also having the Python as pre-installed. And in the newer versions of the Windows, you also have the Python reinstalled. I'm not talking about the network devices. That is a very different thing over here. Okay. So on all the Linux, Unix, and the Windows, you already have the Python interpreter. So you never need to install the agent on these machines. Okay. So that is the main important feature of Ansible, which makes Ansible very popular because it is completely agentless. You never need to install anything on the remote server. But in the Puppet, you need to install the interpreter of Puppet DSL. You need to install the interpreter of Ruby and Erlang in the case of Chef. In the case of Ansible, you do not need to install anything because Python is already available. Yeah, there can be some issue that the Python versions are not matching. On the control node, you have the higher version, and on the manage node, you have the lower version. Okay, so that you can configure by yourself. Okay, but by default, if your all the servers are newly ready, all the servers are based on CentOS 8 or Ubuntu 16 or 18, then the version of the Python will be same on all the machines. Okay, so that is the main important thing of Ansible. After that, there are some more important points about these tools. For communicating or for making the communication between control node and the manage node in the case of Puppet, What you need to configure, you need to configure the SSL certificates. So if you don't know how to configure the secure socket layer certificates, you will not be able to deal with the Puppet. Okay. In the chef also, you need to configure that. But Ansible works on SSH, and SSH is by default pre-installed on Linux also and on Unix also. In Windows, you can install it. And in Windows, basically it communicates over the HTTP. Clear? But you can make that communication available by using some WinRM and different modules. So by default, Ansible works on the SSH, and SSH is by default pre-configured. So it uses existing communication protocol. Okay, that is the main feature of Ansible. But in the Puppet, you need to install OpenSSL packages. After that, you need to configure the certificates. You need to create the keys. You need to put those all the certificates in the PKI folder. There are a lot of configuration you need to perform. Okay, when you are going to configure the environment of your Puppet and Chef. So that is the major difference between Puppet, Chef, and Ansible. After that, if I talk about Puppet, then there is a multi-master configuration you have. In the Chef also you have multi-master configuration. In the Ansible also you have the multi-master configuration. Now, one more difference over here. In the Puppet and in the Chef, you need to know about these languages. But in the Ansible, if you are not aware about the Python, that is also okay. That is a very important term over here. To work with Ansible, you do not need Python knowledge at initial level. Okay. If you want to create your custom modules, okay, let's say there is not a single module which is available which can make your configuration ready. So for that, you can make your custom modules. So if you want to create your custom module, then you must be aware about the Python. And by default, we never create the custom modules like that. Okay, we have sufficient modules. We have almost more than 3000 plus modules. Okay, which all are written in the Python. You just need to call them in the YAML format. Okay, YAML is a YAML and markup language. That is a data serialization language. I hope you have heard about the XML, JSON, and other different data serialization languages, how they work. Okay, they interact. So you always do the configuration in the YAML. You just need to pick up the module and you just need to call that module and you just need to push that module from the control node to the manage node. And that particular module is written in the Python. Python is already available on the manage node, and that particular interpreter can run your module and can do the work. Okay. So that is the main feature of Ansible, that you do not need actually Python at all. If you do not like want to create your custom modules, actually, you do not need Python. Okay. You can directly call the modules. Okay. I don't care how the module is working at the backend. Okay. I just need to run the module. I just need to know what to use. It's something like you do not need to know the ls code. You just need to run the command as ls/ls boot. Okay. You generally never do anything with the code. Okay. Because it is not important that much. Okay. If we are working on the operation level, you just need to use the command. How this command is working at the backend, that is not our issue. That is a developer issue. Okay. That is a community issue. So in the Ansible also, you do not need Python at all. Okay. This is a misconception between or in so many people that we need to learn Python to learn Ansible. Python is not needed at all. Okay. You just need to call the modules and you just need to learn the YAML, and YAML is very easy. You can learn YAML in 15 minutes, not more than that. This is just a key value pairs. Okay. And important also in the Docker, Kubernetes, all the technologies, you basically have YAML concepts. Okay, so you must understand this particular data serialization language, but this is very easy. Okay, you do not need Python. Okay, now after that, so these all are the differences between Puppet, Chef, Ansible. Salt stack, if I talk about salt stack, the salt stack is similar to Ansible. Okay, almost similar to Ansible. But Ansible is the product of Red Hat. So obvious you will be having the better support. Okay, and also in the Ansible, you have a GUI tool as Ansible Tower. Okay, as you know, if we are working on the CLI, there can be a high probability of human mistakes. So in the production environment, we always use some GUI tools. Okay, so there can be a less human mistakes. Okay, on the command line, because by mistake, let's say I have changed something wrong in the configuration file, that can create a very high mess. So obvious, I'll need some GUI tool which can correct me. Okay, when I'm doing something wrong. So in the Ansible, you have the GUI tool as Ansible Tower, which is given by the Red Hat. Okay. So Ansible is the product of Red Hat, and that's why it is very famous. Why? Because it is agentless. This is the very important key point. Agentless and the SSH. It makes Ansible different from all the other tools. Okay. So you just need to install Ansible over the control node. That's it. No need to Ansible on managed nodes. That is a very beautiful thing about the. Okay, so this is how the architecture works. So Ansible works on SSH. Now, if I talk about Terraform, then Terraform works on the basis of plugins, okay, which are given by some communities, okay, and Terraform is basically given by the HashiCorp, okay, that is a very famous community and organization. So Terraform generally connects with the plugins. It has the AWS plugin, and that particular plugin is responsible to connect to your AWS API. And after that, it can make your infrastructure available over the AWS or over the some cloud providers. Okay. So that is a major difference between the Terraform and the Ansible. And I hope now you understand the complete architecture of the Ansible and the Terraform also, that how these tools are different from each other. Okay. So in the orchestration, the Terraform is rich, and in the configuration management, the Ansible is rich. Okay. Now, if you go to the website that is given by the HashiCorp, okay, and it is an open source tool. Okay, you can find the tutorials, community, you can read about it. Okay, there is a GitHub repository also for this particular thing. Okay, and you can also see that which companies are using Terraform. Okay, so you can see your Uber is basically using Terraform, Instacart, Slack. I hope you are aware about the Slack. Okay, that is a user-friendly software. Okay, to manage the communication between all the members of your company. Robinhood, Twitch, Darkly. There are a lot of companies. Which companies are using Ansible? There are a lot of companies which are using Trivago, Revolt, Alibaba, Typeform. There are a lot of companies, 1502 companies which are using Ansible in their tech stacks. So generally, when we are going to provision the environment, we do it with the Ansible Terraform, and we want to manage the applications on those environment, then we use Ansible. So that is a major difference. So this is the ending of the session. Okay, I hope you have understood about the difference between the Ansible and the Terraform. Now, if you have any questions, you can raise your hands and you can tell me. And you can write your questions on the chat as well. Okay.
Can I ask one question? Hello?
Yes.
I'm audible?
Yes, Naveen, audible.
So, just want to ask about the course. So, how you are planning, like first Ansible or Terraform, or any such any idea?
Okay, let me give you the training details. Okay. This training will be of 50 hours. Number one. Timing is 8:30 p.m. to 10 p.m. Okay. Number three. Saturday, Sunday will be off. Number four. Saturday will be a revision class for which we done in week. Okay, there will be a combined revision class for that. Number five. First, we will understand Ansible. Okay, that is all about 15 lectures. Okay, of 1.5 hours. And number six, after that we are going to start Terraform. The batch is going to start on 16 of it. And the fees is 2000 plus GST. Okay. So that is the complete training details. Okay. After that, if you want to go for the certifications and all that things, okay, so you can discuss that with me. Okay. So first we are going to cover